Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Good morning, good morning. My name is Andrea Simintov, and you are listening to Pull Up a Chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to say good morning, good evening to our friends in the United States. Of course, Boker Tov Eretz Israel, Puerto Rico. I haven't seen you. Welcome. Cyprus. Good morning, Cyprus. Good morning, Switzerland. And hello, Kenya. I don't know about you guys. It is hot. The heat is steaming. Boy, sometimes I forget with the plethora of modern inventions, and we really live in this first world country here. Well, guess what? We're reminded that it is the Middle East. Right now, it is 82 degrees outside of my window. That's 28 Celsius. And we are expecting a high of like the 20th day in a row of 100 degrees or 37 degrees. It is hot. And today we're going to talk about, I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but this week is on Friday, actually, Thursday night, tonight and tomorrow, Yom Yerushalayim, commemorating 53 years ago when we reclaimed what is ours, the old city of Jerusalem, reuniting both sides of our eternal city, and it was a miraculous day. It is a day that I will share with you my recollection, indeed perhaps a day that formulated my Zionist identity. Very staggering, very exciting. And as well as we have Parsha, we have a couple of cornball statements coming out of the Palestinian Authority, because we always want to keep the humor factor up high. And again, the chat room is open. Drop me a note. Tell me where you're listening in from. And tell me about the weather by you. Okay? So let's see, anything else I wanted to share before we go out? Yeah, we're going to keep out the bleak, bring in the joy. Yes, indeed, we are still in the coronavirus season, but there is a light at the end of this tunnel. My name is Andrea Simintov. I'll see you on the other side.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Biblical.
Be beautiful.
Wear your crown.
Wrapping is my crown.
Do what married Jewish women have been doing for thousands of years. Celebrate the art of head wrapping. I'm Andrea Grinberg from Rapunzel.com. We have beautiful scarves, stunning accessories, scarves for faith, scarves for healing, and scarves for fun. Rapunzel.com. That's Rapunzel with a W. Or click on our banner on the Israel News Talk Radio homepage.
Rapunzel.com. Beautiful scarves, stunning accessories paired with tutorials, support, and a vibrant community to give you everything you need to start and perfect your head covering journey.
Don't forget, join the Rapunzel community group on Facebook to see, learn, and share your beautiful wraps. That's Rapunzel with a W on Facebook.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
Get 10% off your purchase with promo code RADIO. Go now to Rapunzel.com.
Okay, we're back. This is Andrea Simintov on Pull Up a Chair, IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Always working for you. Laughing in between. I'm taking notes. Things are coming across the feed, and I'm thinking there's so many lovely people in the chat room. And I just was informed that not only the previously mentioned countries are listening in, the U.S., Israel, Puerto Rico, Cyprus, Switzerland, Kenya, but I've also heard that this morning we're going to say good morning to Poland, Sweden, Norway. What is this? Mexico. Yeah, and you know what's so kooky? It's a fellowship. It's a friendship. It's brothers. It's sisters. All of us somehow connected, some of us wanting to, well, all of us wanting to grow together. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to grow along with you. I'm here to make discoveries and share them with you. And I love the letters. Is Andrea at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Drop me a note. Let me know some of your thoughts. Let me know what you're all about. And if anything I say during the program is kind of piques your interest, you want to know where my source material comes from, not that I'm making it up, I'm not. Drop me a note. Happy to engage. And it's really nice. Sometimes on the chat room, it's very cute. You have people from Dallas chatting with people in Cyprus and saying, hey, what's going on? It really is. And I consider it just such an honor, such a blessing to be part of this really joyous journey. And focusing in on the joyous, that's really what's so important. These have been kind of bleak days, scary days. I don't think anyone listening in, I don't think anyone connected to anybody else on this planet is unaware that these are scary times. None of us 5 months ago, even 4 months ago, could have projected that we'd all be extras in a science fiction film on the latest offering on Netflix that I would quickly say to my husband, turn the channel. I don't do pandemic films. And yet they do not let me turn in my contract. You know, it's crazy because it's so hot. One doesn't want to go outside, certainly not here in the Middle East. And I'm thinking that out of the window, there's such beauty. The foliage is like never before. Every morning, I have to tell you that it wasn't until now that we had literally wild parrots flying by every morning. Their posture, the way the line of their bodies, that's what birds have bodies, right? Is a little bit different than the other birds. The vivid green streaking across the sky. Again, if a child presented it to me, I'd say, yeah, it's bad art. Parrots don't fly past our window. Well, I'd be wrong. Indeed, they do. And yet, you know, on many levels, you would think that these days would drag. I'm hearing from others something very similar. There are not enough hours in these homebound days. Crazy when it comes to bedtime. I think, but I had this project planned. And indeed, the day flew by. I thought they would drag. You know, here in Israel, and I'm sure, certainly I know about America. I read the American papers online. None of us know the rules. Here in Israel, some children are back in school, and some are still home. And they're in situations where mommy and daddy have been called back to the office. And the news is no clearer. Another outbreak is expected. Oh, indeed, we're done. No more. So I was thinking, is anybody else as confused as I am? Does anybody else find great solace in not listening to the news? Kind of just skimming your Facebook feed? If somebody mentions something that's enough information? Done. TMI. You know, my husband and I see that every night our dinners are getting quieter and quieter. There's no reason to make up stories. We're with each other all day long. All of us, well, I shouldn't say all of us, some of us, very involved, very conscious, very aware of bolstering our relationships, watching our words, speaking doubly as kindly. I think that's a phrasing. Because just like one can step on a glass under the chuppah, denoting not just the destruction of the temple, but one false step, so much can be smashed. Careful, quietly, kindly. I like your pajamas. You know, so what do? We talk about whether or not such caution and vigilance is still required. People are out there. I went to the gym yesterday morning. I couldn't believe I did it. I went 6:15 in the morning to the gym. I went with my mask thinking if I have to get on the treadmill with the mask, I'll turn around and I'll leave because I can't do it. There were only 3 in the gym. There were big bottles of the alcohol, the Alco Gel. I think that's what it's called. And wipes. And I was scared. I came running home. I did my workout. I came running home. Now our talk is, there's starting to be rumors trickling. I don't know. I should go in the chat room and see what you think about this. There's rumors trickling right now that they say that the aftermath, those of us who are surviving this, those who are afflicted and survive, it's not business as usual. There's questions about whether or not organs are damaged. My husband heard that some will require lung transplants, that the damage will not just be physiological, but they're expecting psychiatric episodes and breakdowns, reactions to certain medications over time. And still, we don't know. So what is our tafkid? What is our obligation? What is our requirement? To push out the bleak, keep it out of our 4 walls, and introduce joy, introduce laughter, make the order of the day beautiful. This we can do together. I'm into it, you're into it. That's great. Listen up, this is great. In the humor, we're not doing politics today. I can't do it. I don't even know. There's a rumor. I think we have a government. All right, everybody's competing. Who looks better in jeans? Anyway, I came across this in all places, roaring, in the New York Post. I didn't see it in the Israel paper because it's too embarrassing even for Israel. But apparently the so-called Palestinian leader, Mahmoud Abbas, he has declared an end to all peace agreements and understandings with Israel and the United States. Wait, get the laughter out of my voice. Let me try it again. An end to all peace agreements and understandings with Israel and the United States, including the landmark 1993 Oslo Agreement, because of the Jewish state's plans to annex settlements in the West Bank. I can't. This guy's dictating policy. This winner, this guy who should have been ousted, whose people, I love the word should. No should. Only in this comedy, this absolutely comedy called the Middle East, is this man merited to be called a leader. He's going to end peace agreements that he has never kept, that he has never intended. It wasn't even worth to them the paper upon which they have been written. Please, taking up the airways. I guess that the New York Post was low on, had too much extra advertising space to actually think that this guy has a voice, has something to say. For shame. What did he say here? Yeah. Okay, we're going to, hold on a second. More than the more Israeli Arabs, more expenses that the taxpayer has to pay for. It's bad enough, Matt, you bring up a very interesting point. Israeli Arabs, more expenses than the taxpayer has to pay for. You know what? I'll say it this way. The most valuable piece of property in the Arab communities today, both in the state of Israel and the surrounding state of Israel, is an Israeli identity card. The lives are good. And what is the most horrific vision for Arabs today is the possibility of a Palestinian state. They can scream and they can yell because they're counting on us to not let it happen. Because if their lives are miserable today, brought about by their own efforts, you can only imagine once they don't have us to feed, educate, medicate. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, interesting, Matt. We're also going to talk about herd community later on when we talk about both Jerusalem and the Parsha. Okay, so we have, I think, just a minute left So I just want to introduce you to our next section. We're going to be talking about Jerusalem Day. And indeed, I must tell you, I was a little girl. I think I was in the 5th or 6th grade at the time. It was 1967. And a teacher named Mr. Steinberg, to this day, I was not in a Jewish school. I was in a public school. And he came in, and I don't even know if the non-Jewish kids were in the class, but he came in and he began to cry. And that was kind of embarrassing for us in 1967 to see a man crying. Today it's hip. But then it was, and he was crying, and he said, Jerusalem is united. And Jerusalem had been a buzz in my house, a buzzword. My father, may he rest in peace, truly a Zionist, but he didn't impose. And from that moment on, with Mr. Steinberg's words, Jerusalem has been reunited. I knew, I felt, I sensed, I tasted that my home was whole, and I needed to come home. Andrea Simintov, I'll see you on the other side.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Okie doke. Wait, oh, hello, we're back. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair. We are back. Yom Yerushalayim. So 53 years ago, in a divided Jerusalem, a Jerusalem that had become peppered. I'm losing the English. It's not being replaced with Hebrew. I just basically am becoming inarticulate in two languages. A Jerusalem that was peppered with barbed wire. A Jerusalem with bullet holes on its facades. Suddenly was, with very little fanfare, liberated. The liberators were surprised. They walked, the Jordanians had retreated, and they gently, slowly walked to the Kotel Hamaravi, the Western Wall, covered with garbage, covered with refuse, covered with feces, lay ruined, wrecked, abandoned. You know, in Jewish thought, in Jewish society, it is Jerusalem, not Rome. That's the eternal city. It is Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, Jerusalem, the holy city. This is the city of lights, not Paris. At the beginning of the 20th century, Rabbi Meir Simcha HaKohen said, very simply, woe to those who somehow think that Berlin is Jerusalem. And indeed, we have Jews living around the world who believe that Jerusalem is nice. It's culturally an interesting place, that Jewish place. It's on the same shelf. It stands on the same shelf, the same real estate option as New Hampshire. What is it? Mount Perry. I can't even say it right. What is the capital of New Hampshire? Toronto, Paris. It is Jerusalem. You know, Jerusalem has been referred to as the heart of the Jewish people The heart is the strongest organ in the body. It is the most vulnerable of all organs of the body. We hear about someone having a heart attack, people having a weakened heart. The heart must remain strong. Jerusalem is the lifeblood of the Jewish people, and it's pumped. The words, the vision, people yearned, if only I could go back to Jerusalem. Pumped through the Jewish world, understanding for generations that it is our home. Just as this little girl sitting in a classroom in 1967 heard that Jerusalem was united, reunited, this little girl knew, oh, she recognized in that pivotal moment, that is her home. And over the next 30 years, she would work toward coming home. You know, over the last 3 centuries, first of all, let me clarify, absolutely clarify a misunderstanding that Jerusalem was ever void of Jews. Jews have always been here. Our presence has never, ever been gone. We have always been here. Cannot say the same of all the other people who claim it is theirs. You know, the Muslim world was very not, all of those who wanted to be an international city. Have you heard that? Has anybody heard that filth? The United Nations, there's your success story, wanted to be an international city. But you know what? We've been keeping it for you. We've been keeping it for our Christian visitors. We've been keeping it for Muslims who pray and live and thrive here. The UN has showed its hand to both Jews and modern Israel before. No, thank you. Your partnership is not invited. And indeed, the Muslim world had very little concern over the fate and fortune of Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh until the Jews began to arrive and rebuild it. And suddenly it's holy. It's holy in Muslim literature? Not so. I don't even think it's mentioned in the Quran. Mecca? Yes. When they go on the Hajj is toward Mecca. They bow toward Mecca. Jews, 3 times a day, wherever they are, to Jerusalem. You know, the United States Department didn't even recognize Jerusalem as being part of Israel, let alone its capital. Oh, the hullabaloo. Oh, the noise. Oh, the frustration. And when they gave us lip service over the generations, how frustrated we were. We were the only country in the world, in the history of the world, not allowed to declare what is our own capital. Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day. It's not a nothing on the calendar. It's everything. If you can imagine, they all wanted us. They pillared us. The Roman army conquered us. The Roman emperor, Hadrian, razed the city to rubble, and still Jews remained. They wanted us to survive only in our prayer books. They wanted us to survive only over cups of tea and remembering those people. The Arab conquests raised us again. Interestingly enough, it were the Muslims who actually let the Jews return over the Romans. But there were rules, always rules. Interesting, they roam freely in our city today, freely, because that's just what Jews do. We feel everybody's heartbreak, we feel everybody's pain, and very often we put the interests of others over our own. Not so in the other world. Jews were permitted to return, let's see, what year was this? In the common era 638, they were allowed to return only to mourn. Okay? We were allowed to mourn. I'm not sure that I have the dates right. I'll let you know. Let's bring it to modern times. Not the Crusaders, not the Inquisition, in May 1948. Know your history. Know your history. Read your history. Write to me. I'll give you the books to read. I'll send you the articles. In May 1948, the British were forced by the UN to leave, and the old city of the Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount, including the Kotel, the Western Wall, fell to the Jordanian army, the Arab Legion. All the Jewish residents were exiled. We were sent a few meters over, but exiled. Not a thing that Jews do. The city was burned, homes, generations, looted, filth. You could still find Jewish artifacts in the Arab markets from this period. The new city of Jerusalem was divided, and now we're back. Today, I sit here in Jerusalem. I came back to Jerusalem. I remember 25 years ago, my husband said to me, well, so we'll make Aliyah. How about Ra'anana? How about Netanya? There were some beautiful suburbs in Tel Aviv. And I thought to myself, I'm not leaving Long Island to go to another Long Island, as lovely as Long Island was. I'm not moving from Manhattan to go to another Manhattan, as lovely and powerful and as culturally vibrant as Manhattan was. My grandchildren, well, some of my grandchildren, live, run, play, study, are rooted in and part of the fabric of Holy Jerusalem. My husband, who was born in South Africa, who lived in Los Angeles, daily walks to synagogue in Jerusalem, praying with Jews from all over the world, what we call a kibbutz galiyot, an ingathering of the exiles. And even in these crazy, ugly, painful Corona days, I can still tiptoe out of my home in the morning and breathe in and breathe out the smells, the fragrance, and listen to the sounds of the birds and the barking jackals in the hills of Jerusalem. It's an incredible, incredible thing to have the free choice to be a young girl in 1967 and to know that so many years later, I can choose my history. I can choose where I sit. And I can choose to sit, certainly on the front row bench of unfolding Jewish history, and to say, crazy or sane, holy or profane, I've chosen my place. And indeed, I'm rooted and part of our deep, deep history. It's an incredible experience, and I pray that all of you will experience this one day in the near future. See you on the other side.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
Okay, we're back. Andrea Sementov, pull up a chair. You're listening in. We're supposed to start the Devar Torah now. We will. But I just wanted to get to one lovely point. It was very funny last night. I'm going over notes for the show and throwing things out to my husband, I'm saying, gee, the Parsha is Bamidbar. And he says, Devarim. He's, this is the book of Devarim. We're starting on this Shabbos, and the Parsha is Bamidbar, always the Parsha that it's read the Shabbos before, the Sabbath before the holiday of Shavuot. And boy, oh boy, are we going to have a show next week. But I want to just finish up one thought about Yerushalayim that I thought that all of us could somehow relate to, especially those of us still living in the diaspora. So in the earlier, there's a great, the Chavetz Chaim, the Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen. So he counseled Jewish soldiers. I just came across this little note. I can't remember where I found it. Help me with it. He counseled Jewish soldiers who were in the army of the Tsar of Russia not so long ago in our history. The Tsar would take Jewish soldiers in, and they would be in the army for about 25 years. That's how you broke people's religious spirit. You keep them in the army, they're unable to observe the laws of prayer, they're unable to observe the laws of keeping kosher and all the other laws. Well, eventually, it's a better way of assimilating. So the soldiers were in terrible circumstances, and how they could maintain their Jewish identity under the impossible conditions, that they weren't even permitted time to pray, even pray in secret, to privately utter the words of the Shema. Doing so, they were eyes on them. Doing so, it could even result in their death. So what did Rabbi HaKohen instruct them? He said, don't pronounce your prayers. Don't say words. Simply find one moment each day when you can face the direction of Yerushalayim. That what could seem to be an insignificant gesture, he assured them, would be enough to keep them connected to our God in heaven and to the Jewish people. Oh, the power of Jerusalem. So many of us, my friends, we take for granted that every synagogue has windows. Ideally, when synagogues are built, when they're really good architects, they deliberately make the windows facing Jerusalem. One should only pray, which is from the Talmud, there's a statement that said one should only pray in a house that has windows. And it said, and Daniel would enter his house where there were open windows in his upper chamber facing Yerushalayim. 3 times a day he would kneel and pray. Windows allow us to look out and see Jerusalem from wherever we are. So I ask all of you listening to at least once a day, look in our direction, remain tethered, remain close, and our heartbeats will indeed join. Okay, Devarim, Parsha Bamidbar. The Parsha in the desert. Boy, oh boy, when you feel the heat around here, you know you're in the desert. So this is really, I remember when I was growing up, I said, but it doesn't have the same drama as Adam and Eve. Oh my gosh, what about Yehudit? What about Yehuda? What about Tamar? Let's keep it fun. Let's keep it romantic. Let's keep it bloody. And then suddenly we have a Parsha like Bamidbar, which is all about a census. Boring. Boring, oh so not. Would I do it if it were boring? Of course not. In a roll call, who's here? Here. There's a tendency to focus only on the total, the crowd, the multitude, the mass. Oh, this country listening in has 60 million people. Oh, did you hear about that company? Amazon has 100,000 employees. Sports crowd, there was 60,000 in the stadium. Any total tends to value the group or the nation as a whole. The larger the total, well, it's a stronger army. It's a more popular team. It's a very successful company, corporation. But counting devalues the individual. It tends to make them replaceable. I sometimes think about how we hear, I remember growing up in America and hearing that a soldier from Des Moines was killed in Iraq. And I thought to myself, he's a number. How wrong, how cruel. When a soldier dies in battle, if we reduce them to numbers, well, another will take his place. If one person leaves the organization, somebody else can be hired, sometimes two people. Sometimes the job disappears. After all, they've only been a number. You know, crowds have the effect of making an individual lose his or her judgment. Have you ever seen when they open up the stores, Black Friday, I think it's called, or a post-Christmas sale? We see these things and we're like, oh, look at those people running in. They're crazy. They lose judgment. They follow what others are doing. Well, these sales are going on. It must be a very important thing. It's called herd behavior. Very often it leads to what's a collective madness. I came across some writings from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs in England, and he refers to in 1841, there was a classic study about the madness of crowds. Talked about how thousands of people lost everything they had in 1720 in something called the South Sea Bubble, and that there was a tulip mania in Holland. Who would have thought of such a thing? The great crashes of 1929, 2008. People killed themselves en masse because of a crowd psychology. You know, an individual in a crowd is like a grain of sand among other grains of sand. And when the wind blows, have you ever been on the beach late at night when the sun starts to set and the wind comes in? The sand begins to swirl and whirl. Can you find the grain of sand that you had looked at earlier? That little chip, 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 chip piece of stone? In a crowd, our conscience is silenced. Crowds, indeed, they become regressive. They're prone to regressive behavior. Demagogues. And who are these people that work the crowds? We know what happened in Nazi Germany. Led by figures who prey on people's fears, prey on people's senses of victimhood. A lot of this was written about just at the same time, during the Dreyfus trial in France. They actually called attention to the first time in modern literature about this crowd mentality. You know, there's a remarkable feature in Judaism, that there's a principled insistence, like no other civilization that actually came before it, on the dignity and the integrity of an individual. Jews believe that every human being is in the image and the likeness of our God in heaven. The sages said that every life is like an entire universe. Maimonides even brings down that every one of us should see ourselves as if our next act could change the world. You know, dissension is, I'm laughing, dissension is intrinsically Jewish. And yet, recorded in the Mishnah, it's supposed to be looked at intensely, studied under a microscope. Every verse of the Torah is capable, say our sages, to have 70 different interpretations. This week, the Parsha, Bamidbar, the main message is that one does not only count numbers in Jewish life. There's an emphasis that without Jews practicing, there is no Judaism. Judaism is not an idea. It's not a philosophy. It's a living organism. It's a blueprint that desperately requires human participation and numbers. You know, we're all aware that counting is important. But when we make decisions about our speech, our behavior, and our outlook on life, we should be thinking about how to influence the numbers around us. We count. We are to be counted. On the High Holy Days, there's a wonderful liturgical poem that talks about a shepherd counting as his flock passes by. Each sheep Each lamb is individual. Each lamb has great meaning. No matter how fervently we want to mix into this massive humanity, every one of us is singled out for a particular task. Every one is singled out to, with his or her next move, change society, change the world around us. To be a Jew is very, very special, but only those who cherish and appreciate the rules, the regulations, the conversation, the dialogue, the conflict, can appreciate their Jewishness. Traditions, our value systems, celebrate confidence and self-worth. Rabbi Twersky implores us not to be confused with humility and feelings of inadequacy. Humility may best be defined by contrasting it with the opposite, vanity. Vanity makes us feel proud, whereas humility makes us know that we've achieved great things. Vanity can lead us to resting on our laurels and do nothing. Humility is stimulating as one demands greater performances of ourselves. Indeed, we're part of a crowd. We're part of the world. Not one of us alone is an island. But in understanding that our individual selves are celebrated and part of this great desert, the desert will not stand without our grain of sand. Andrea Simintov, Shabbat Shalom from Holy Jerusalem.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.